This is what happens when you leave your bread unattended. If you ask me, I bet that's a 3-year-old's little fingerprint marks. Did you use? Not sure what she's doing. She's gonna help camera while I start the bread because it's hard to do 2 things with one hand. That wasn't right. Anyway, so she's gonna be my camera lady until we get some more equipment with better cameras, better selfie sticks, things like that. So I'm not trying to do things with one hand and then you don't get shots up my nostrils or at the ceiling. So we're getting better, we're working on it. Anyway, so I'm gonna have Emma take over and she is going to camera while I get the bread going. So I keep my yeast in the freezer. Okay, like I've said before, I'm not a baker, so if you see methods I'm doing that are not good, feel free to comment, tell me how I can do better, or ignore it and do it better yourself. So what I do for my yeast is I get the water as hot as I can handle it on the faucet. I know if you get the water too hot, it will kill your yeast. But so far I've not had a problem. I've been doing it for a while. Because I've had a problem if I don't get it hot enough, then it doesn't rise. So what I do is I get the water going and I take the honey. So I put honey in my bread. I get out the honey and I like to mix the honey in with the water and the yeast. For some reason, I mean, I know that yeast needs to be fed and it likes that, but specifically it does amazing with rising the yeast and then rising the bread when I add the honey to the water and the yeast. You're going to be super impressed with my measuring concepts. So I take honey, and the recipe that I've used is you use, for the 2 loaves that I do, you do about 1/2 of a 1/3 cup. I don't know what that exact measurement is, but about 1/2 of a 1/3 cup of honey. And I just guess, and it seems to do fine. I know baking, you want to be a little bit more precise with your measurements, but with this bread, I guess it's forgiving because I haven't had a problem. So what I do is I get this going. I melt the honey in as best I can. I do 2½ teaspoons of yeast. And then I'll let that sit for a good 15 minutes or so, or until I'm done doing whatever I'm doing, and I'll come over and grind my wheat and get the bread started. But I like to get this going right away, you know, so it has time, and then I'll go on and do some other chores and wait for it to be ready. So I just try and mix that up, and then I just let it sit at room temperature and let it rise. Okay, so you can see that it's only been, 5-10 minutes, and today my yeast is playing nice. So it's beautiful. It's got a big mushroom top on it. That's what I like. That's what I like to see. So we're gonna go ahead and grind our wheat. I have this Nutrimill grinder that we got. Love it. Does a great job. You can adjust the fineness of your flours and different things. So what I do is I use white wheat and red wheat. The red wheat has more protein in it, from what I understand, and the white wheat is softer. If you do just a red wheat loaf, which I've done in the past, it's like a brick. It's really, really hard. And then if you do just white, it's really, really crumbly. So I've kind of changed things around and I have experimented. So what I do is I do 2 cups of white to 1 cup of red, I think. So we're gonna go ahead and get that grinding. that back into the corner. It's where it lives. I like to hit it to get all the flour off the lid. And because I've mixed with the ratios, you got to mix up the wheat really good, and it separates it a little bit when you grind it. It separates the wheat germ and stuff, so it's really good to, what am I trying to say? It's really good to mix it when you're done. This little thing catches the fine flours, but I just put it right back in, like the pastry flour, but I just put it right back in. So then I get my thing. Grinding that wheat is enough to do 2 loaves of bread. Sometimes I need an extra tablespoon or 2, and I keep a little bit in the freezer for that. I used to grind a bunch at a time and freeze it, but I found it just doesn't make as nice a bread. I don't know, probably because it's cold when you go to mix it. So I just decided to quit being a lazy bum and just grind it fresh. You get more nutrients out of it that way anyway. So sometimes I'll grind, you know, I'll do a half a cup extra and put it in the freezer so I don't have to grind a whole nother batch just for a couple tablespoons. But since I did that last time, so I'm just gonna do what I can here, and then I'll just use out of the freezer what I think I need. So you know, this recipe is just kind of go with it. You do about 4 cups of flour for sure, and then you do another cup or so depending on your liquid content and what you need. So that right there was about, oh, I don't know, I lost track. So I do know that I do that, and I'll put the recipe in the comments below. So I've got that. You do 1.5 teaspoons of salt, so I'll just dump that in. And you know, like I said, with baking, usually you have to be very precise. I have not been as precise with this, and I've had good luck. So this recipe is forgiving, which is good for people like me who can't bake. So I use avocado oil. No, Sarah, not right now. I do a half of 1/3 cup. And like I said, there's probably a tablespoons or something that I could figure out that would need to be done. Look at my face. That could be done. But it's easier for me to use a cup instead of doing a spoon. And again, I'd like to thank my Emma for being my camera lady. I do 1 egg at room temperature. Not right now. So I do 1 egg at room temperature. I make sure I beat it up really good. I go ahead and I pour that in. 1 egg I found helps bind it together. It's less crumbly with an egg. Then I go ahead and lock that on.
I do need it.
Then I add the yeast. So there's always a little bit extra in the bottom. I start the yeast with 1 cup of water, but for the recipe, you do about 1.5 cups. So then I'll just go ahead and add, you know,
What, Sarah?
about a half a cup.
Well, Sam's using it right now. I'm sorry.
Life doesn't stop, even if you're making bread.
What, Sarah? I can't talk to Sam. He's already on it. You gotta wait for your turn.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add the rest of the water. Get the rest of the honey off of there, and then get that mixed in. So then you'll want to mix it for about 15 minutes to help get the gluten to separate and whatnot. Sarah, not right there, honey. So I'll go ahead and start the timer. There's my sprouted wheat in the freezer I was telling you about. It looks like it needs a little bit more.
Not right now. There's no more bananas.
So as you can see, I'm really good at measuring. It's just kind of go as I do it. That was right English. So I usually let it mix. And as you can see, it's going to need some more. And gosh, I might have to grind some more flour. The day I'm trying to do a tutorial, it's going to be a little bit funny. But I'll go ahead and post more exact measurements, you know, in the comments. We're back with the dough. You want it to form a nice ball. You can see that there's nothing sticking to a little bit sticking to the side, but not a lot. In the beginning, when I started making bread, I was really afraid of it being too sticky. So I made sure the dough was really firm and not sticky at all. And that made for a really, really thick bread. Not fluffy, not nice. And so now I just kind of, you want to keep adding flour to it until it becomes, I mean, you don't want it to stick to your fingers like cookie dough would, but you want it to just, I don't know, just barely be sticky. So I like to touch it to see if I think it needs more flour. So it is a little too sticky, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go ahead and add just a tiny bit more. And you just want to add a little at a time. So I just use my little scoop here, and I just do a little bit. And then I watch it just kind of spin around and do its thing. And then I will do the touch test again. So once I'm done with this process, I've got the timer going. We've got another 8 minutes to go until that. And so once that process is done, I like to let the dough rest. And so I'll take it off the dough hook and I'll cover it with a rag. And I'll let it sit until it doubles in size. And then I'll shape it into loaves. And I'll go through those processes as we get there. But it depends on the day, how long it takes, and how cold it is, obviously. So we will go from there. Okay, our bread is ready to be rolled out and put into pans. So you want to make sure you've got a clean surface. I'm just going to roll it out. I like to grab all the extras. I wish I could make more than 2 loaves at a time, but my mixer isn't big enough for that. So someday I'll have a cool enough mixer that I can make like 4 loaves at a time or more. I mean, you know, it'd be nice to not have to do just 2 at a time. And I could do, you know, mix back-to-back batches, but I worry about burning out the motor in my KitchenAid. So what I do is I try to get it as even as possible, and then I cut it in half. So you can see it's a little sticky, but not bad. It's nice and fluffy, nice dough. Sarah's been begging since I started it to have a piece, so I better save her a piece or there might be mutiny in the home. So if I was cool, I'd already have my bread pans out and ready, but I'm not, so I'm gonna get them right now. So I have one really cool cast iron, and I have one, I don't know, donation one that I got, I don't know from where, but I love cast iron and I would like to get more of it. But you know, there's really not a clear difference in the bake. They rise pretty much the same. They bake pretty much the same. So I don't know if there's a real benefit to having cast iron, other than I like it. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna see if the cooking spray is in the cupboard where it's supposed to be, or if it's in the garage where Jonah has used it for the 4-wheeler blade, for snow removal. We'll see. Oh, there it is. He returned it. That's good. I'm just going to give it a nice spray. So I roll the dough out like a rectangle. Then I take it and I fold it over and use the heel of my hand to seal the seam. Then I do it again seal the seam, fold it again, and seal the seam. And I roll it over, and then I just kind of shape it to be cute and nice, and I'll put it right there. One tip I like to use on cold days when the house isn't as warm as in the summer, you can see my dishwasher's right underneath this surface, and it heats it up when I do dishes. So it's really good if I need to do dishes anyway, which, when don't you need to do dishes? I'll put my pan, this, to rise on here, and it rises a lot faster. I've heard people doing heat pads and things like that, which would be fine too, but it's dual purpose if I'm already doing dishes. So I'm just going to shape this loaf. And when I was using my frozen flour, my dough was very stiff and very hard, and this dough is very soft, very easy to work with. And I forgot that I needed to have a piece for Sarah, so let's sneak a little off the bottom there. She's weird and likes to eat the dough. So then I get that in, so you can see that they're nicely in the pans, and then I just leave them on this warm surface and cover them up. And then set it and forget it. I sound like an infomercial. Anyway, so yeah, and then I'll just check them throughout the day, and then we'll cook them. Okay, the bread is ready. It's risen. In fact, it's risen maybe a little higher than I would normally. I just got distracted and forgot. Sometimes I'll set a timer because I'm really awesome at forgetting. I'm just really cool like that. So as you can see, it's doming over the top. It's beautiful. So we're gonna go ahead and put it in the oven. And cook it for 30 minutes on 350. It's done. Beautiful golden brown crust. The downside to the cast iron is it's heavier, obviously. It's cast iron. Turn it out onto the cooling racks. It's important with sprouted wheat bread that you don't slice it for at least 15 minutes, because the inside is really gooey, and so if you slice it, it just turns to mush. And so it's important with sprouted wheat grains that you let it cool for at least 15 minutes. So in about 15 minutes we'll slice it. The kids are anxious, so it'll be really good. I'll have to do another tutorial on how I sprout my grains. I let them soak and then I dehydrate them. So but there's a process for that too. So I usually keep them in a jar down here after I've sprouted them and dehydrated them, and I have them labeled with white and red. So that's what I do to make my 100% whole wheat sprouted bread.